as soon as you try and create art that 100% of people love, you've lost before you've even started, because that is something that's impossible. The pinnacle of creation for me is creating something that splits the crowd down the middle. The sound of the American Wild West is actually composed by Italians. Songs like Django, that song, when you hear that song, that's what happens when an Italian tries to write a country song. It takes a long time to sound like yourself, and that's through experience and trying this and then trying that. And, you can sound like yourself several times throughout a lifetime. For me, that's kind of one of the most beautiful things is to be able to create something that people know that's Harley Stewart.
Before we get into this episode, I just want to thank you for being here. I started this podcast to spark conversations that inspire, creatively, personally, and everything in between. So if you'd like to support that mission, the best way is to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're watching or listening to this. That'll help other creative minds discover us, and also ensures that you won't miss any of the incredible guests that we've got coming up. Because when this passion is shared, it grows exponentially. So thank you, and now let's get stuck into it. When you told me that you do spaghetti western music, I didn't even know what that was going to sound like. I thought it was going to be gimmicky, sort of like Blazing Saddles kind of thing. Right?
Sure.
But then when I heard it, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that music was necessarily given its dues in that genre.
Well, it seems to be a genre that, changed the world of film music, kind of pioneered by Ennio Morricone and like a bunch of other great Italian composers. And then it kind of, changed the world, and then it got forgotten about in the mid-70s and left out on the plains somewhere. And, people have kind of done some cameo sort of things with it.
Because the genre...
Like one track on an album here and another track on an album there, but no one's actually taken that genre and done something with it.
I love it. I've fucking, like, when we put it on, and straight away it took me to Tarantino, right? Like,
Yeah.
I could see all, like, if I felt like a Kill Bill movie,
Yeah.
felt like Hateful Eight,
Yeah.
all of that. And it just got me thinking, like, whether or not, like, the spaghetti western, I don't even know if that's even PC. Can you even call it spaghetti western anymore?
I think the Italians get a little bit, like the composers get a little bit kind of pissed off about that. But that's what it is. It's spaghetti western.
Yeah, it's stuck.
That's the genre, yeah. If you want to be, if I was speaking to like an Italian maestro, I would probably call it Italian westerns.
Yeah.
But they're spaghetti westerns. It's a genre. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. You type that into Spotify, you type that into anything, and that's what's going to come up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
exactly.
then, yeah, it's official. Because then, like, that whole genre, it was spun out of just westerns, American westerns, right? And it was kind of like juiced up a little bit, right? And then the music also was kind of juiced up as well, so it kind of gave it a whole new spin.
Yeah. Well, it's for those that don't know what it is. Spaghetti western genre is a genre of film that came about in the 60s. The Italians got obsessed with the American West, and they made a lot of movies about the American West, and they're usually kind of like pretty B grade, like thrown together. Yep, that's good enough. Let's move on to the next scene kind of thing. Like they're low budget movies, cult movies. Some of them are in English, like stuff like The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, A Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more. And a lot of the others are just dubbed. They're done in Italian. And, over the years for me, they're quite hard to watch because they're quite low budget and a bit shit sometimes. But the way they did them is something that, changed the way that people made movies through the dialogue or lack of dialogue. Some of those movies don't have that many lines
That's where
in
it
them.
came off from, wasn't it? When like just that really pensive look.
Like close up eyes, close up gun on the on the
just
hip,
real
and,
emotive framing.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing that I think is that when you think of the sound of the Wild West, you probably think of like the this kind of thing. But that was the sound of the American Wild West is actually composed by Italians, which I think is really funny. Like it's got nothing to do with the Americans. The American soundtracks are more like symphonic with strings and romantic and stuff, whereas the Italians do it far differently. And songs like Django.
Yeah,
which Tarantino reused for Django Unchained, like that was from like 1967 or something, the original. But I think it's quite funny because that song, when you hear that song, that's what happens when an Italian tries to write a country song.
It's worked out all
so
right.
It doesn't kind of sound. I mean, you could reorchestrate that and with more country, let's say like acoustic guitar, a violin, and a double bass and a pedal steel slide guitar or something, and it would probably sound like a bit more American, like a traditional country kind of lineup. But the instrumentation is more European, and the orchestration and the arrangement is,
That's interesting. Was that done intentionally, or was that like just like this is all we know? Let's just take the tools that we have and try to apply it, like getting a square peg in a round hole kind of situation?
I don't really know, but I think that, I think they just sort of, that's the thing with these Italian Westerns. They don't overanalyze. They're not trying to like replicate some American thing, they kind of like look at it and they're like, cool, I'll get the idea. And then they just, I'm just guessing here, but it seems like that, and I know a fair bit about it. They just kind of like, yeah, I think I got it, and then they go off and they do their own thing, and it becomes this sort of adaptation of what an American Western should look like, feel like, and sound like. But they're really different, Firstly, they're way more violent than the American Westerns from a movie point of view. Like Tarantino was, his favorite filmmaker is a guy called Sergio Corbucci, who did movies like Django, the original Django, The Grand Silence, and these types of movies. And they are super. Like when you see one of Corbucci's movies, you can see where Tarantino gets his blood and gore from, because that's what it's like. Like they're heavy movies, And for the mid '60s, like there was nothing like it. It was like, pretty damn violent for back then, and all the scenes and all the other themes that happen as well. It's like pretty intense. So, but yeah, my point being is that I think it's quite funny where it all comes from, and particularly that the sound of the American West is actually composed by Italians, and then furthermore, the Americans kind of then copied the Italians a bit on how to create movies about the American West. So it's sort of...
So Western movies are meant to be a depiction of what America was like back then. But not only is it just entirely fictionalized, but it is completely culturally appropriated somewhere else entirely.
Yeah, you could say that for sure.
And completely like, it was an interpretation, and it's...
Yeah, exactly.
I think it seems like it's even more than interpretation, because it's more like, yeah, I say, because when you said, like, okay, I kind of get the gist of it, and then they just did something entirely on its own.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, okay, that's like actually not even close anymore.
Yeah.
But it's so far removed, but so well loved that it was then adopted and brought back.
Yeah, it became like, I mean, movies like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and the Dollars trilogy. That's the final movie of, starring Clint Eastwood. Like that was, that was the movie that kind of put the Italians on the map. But that was in English, and it had Clint Eastwood in it. I mean, he was a new actor back then, 1965 or something like that. He was, a young buck, and did this film, and then, it really put them on the map, and they basically, influenced the Americans from there. It became a big thing, and then the Americans kind of respected the Italians for making these movies, or more Sergio Leone. He was one of the great directors and writers of these movies, but and obviously the soundtracks played such a massive role in these movies, and they wouldn't have been as good without the soundtracks,
No,
in
definitely.
fact, they were so good, the soundtracks, that they used to act with the soundtracks were composed before the movie was shot, and the actors would do their scenes with the soundtrack playing on set.
Right.
It's just a cool way to do things. And I mean, if I were an actor, particularly for like one of those final shootout scenes, like from The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, like that goes on and on and on with no dialogue, you want that. Like that would be a real treat to do that with that's such a great composition.
It is essentially, it sets the tone, not just sets the tone, but it holds the tone of that. You are right. The soundtrack, and this is what I was saying before, that I didn't even join the dots and seeing how they were connected, because the songs and the sound of it is so distinct and pretty fucking powerful.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's got a lot, really, really powerful. And it does stand on its own. It's not just a backing soundtrack. It is a genre in and of itself that can stand on its own 2 feet. And I do wonder, because you said that, like, why wasn't that genre something that was picked up? Country music is something that has evolved over time. I don't know anything about country music.
Me neither, really. Like I only, like I said the other day, if you had told me 5 years ago that I was going to be in the country music scene, I probably would have laughed in your face because, I'm not a big country music guy, but now that's the scene. Like the Counterfeit, which is the band that I play in, that I started maybe 2 years ago, like that's the scene that it fits into. And I just think that's hilarious because it's not, it doesn't sound like Willie Nelson or Johnny Cash or, Hank or any of those dudes. Like it's its own thing. Maybe there's a couple of tracks that are kind of reminiscent of that, but every track on a spaghetti western soundtrack is, more or less another genre in itself. Like you might have like a more Mexican sounding track, like with, mariachi trumpets and acoustic guitars, and then you might have more of an Irish sounding track to represent the, Irish immigrants in the West, in the Wild West, or you might have something that's a bit more romantic with strings, which is a bit more classical, maybe like with a European thing, or whatever it might be. Like,
I guess, like you said, that like if it was to be in a category, and this is the strange thing, right? Because like it's not. I don't think it's country music. But if it was going to be tied to anything that resembles something, maybe country music, it does feel very far removed from it. But what I was saying was that like country music over time has evolved and changed, but this spaghetti western genre, for a lack of a better term, has stayed as the same. Like when I hear the Counterfeit music, I don't have a keen ear, but to me, it sounds like it is something that was done that long ago.
Yeah, it's
like
in a time
60,
capsule.
70 years ago. Yeah, completely. And it took me to, and I think that it sort of has to have that degree of authenticity, right? Like to be reminiscent of that genre, because that genre, not that it hasn't evolved, there was no evolution of it. It was just a slither in time where this creative expressions were made, whether it be film or music or composition form. It stayed here, and the film styles. I think there were people that have taken inspiration from that and have applied techniques across the way, but it has just, like you said, it's just been a time capsule.
Yeah.
And now it's all, I guess, like having a bit of prominence because Tarantino would still be showcasing and highlighting it.
Yeah, well, he's played a pretty big role in sort of reviving it somewhat and putting it on the map in a modern context, which I think is super cool. But he's, once again, I mean, that's a part of his style, is taking old stuff and putting it in some new context, sometimes a really random context as well, and it works for him, you know. Like he's one of the only guys that's a big soundtrack guy that doesn't actually have soundtracks for his original soundtracks for his movies, because it's all pre-recorded stuff. The only one that he did was Hateful Eight.
That was all original?
Just the opening scene. Yeah, there's not much music in that movie, but he got to work with Ennio Morricone, which is his favourite composer of all time, who's the great Italian spaghetti western composer, one of the great pioneers. Yeah, and he sort of met him and he said, like, I'm not even sure if I want to do this, you know, because I've never done it before, but, you know, like you're my favorite composer and maybe there's something there that we should do. And then Morricone kind of had this idea and, you know, a couple of weeks later and wrote this opening sequence. And that, I believe, is the opening sequence of The Hateful Eight is the only original piece of music that Tarantino has ever used in a movie.
Right.
And it's cool. And it's nothing like hooky or even that memorable, to be honest. It's more of, but it's perfect for the scene. And it's this kind of like menacing sort of ostinato thing that keeps going, and while this wagon's kind of, you know, pummeling its way through the snow. But it's perfect for the movie, you know, and that's what film music is about. It's not always about grandiose trumpet melodies and romantic strings, you know, like sometimes you don't, you know, in fact, the majority of the time you don't even want to notice the music in a movie.
No.
You just want to kind of, it's the support act to the visual, you know, but I guess that's, on that note, that's where the spaghetti western genre is different to every other genre, because the music takes the front seat a lot of the time. Several times throughout a movie, the music is at the forefront of the scene.
When you say it like that, and now when I think back, that makes a lot of sense, but because it is the sound of that whole genre. But it didn't, before we were chatting about this, I didn't realize that was where that sound was engineered. So I didn't think that spaghetti westerns, that the soundtrack was at the forefront until now. I'm like, actually, I didn't realize it was at the forefront because it was actually so much bigger than that, right? Like you have a movie which was big in and of itself, and the sound of the movies was, I guess, even bigger than the films itself, if it then eventually carried over across shores, and then was adopted and by the likes of Tarantino, that it was actually the sound that was the catalyst for all of that. That's sick. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. And I mean, think of it this way, like, you know, you're a movie guy, like how many like famous musical motifs can you think of off the top of your head? Like it's one of those things where it's that the music of the Spaghetti West, you know, there's so many little motifs that you would know. Like if I played them to you, you might not be able to think of them now, but like if I played them to you, you'd, you know, from A Fistful of Dollars, like this kind of stuff, or Django, or you know, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That's and true. All these themes, like this. there is a lot of them, and
For a genre, yeah, definitely. I think that, if there was some compositions, specific movies you'd be able to connect, as in like, like a John Williams composition or something like that, you'll be able to be like, okay, that's from this movie, that movie.
Yep.
And it will,
for sure.
But in terms of genre specific, not quite like that. I think that is quite unique.
Yeah.
But then
and quite early on too, compared to, if you think of John Williams, like, he did like the Jurassic Park and, and
all the
many
Spielberg,
other stuff. Yeah. And, I could hum you a few of those melodies for sure.
But whether or not you could even like tie it back in and say that's a John Williams composition.
That's it.
Yeah.
When you hear those Western ones, particularly the Morricone ones, his sound is so distinctive that it's like, one of those for anyone, any sort of musician at least, or definitely any composer, and most certainly any film composer. All you need to hear is a couple of notes, and you know that it's Morricone because his sound is so distinctive. You know what I mean?
Oh, Zimmer will be another one.
Heavily influenced by Morricone.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
But he's a great composer, and particularly love his work in Interstellar. I thought that was
that was great,
sensational, particularly when that they're like spinning out of control, and he's got to dock manually out in outer space, and that music on that pipe organ that's playing is just.
I've used that a couple of times. With on the socials. Yeah. Which actually then this can tie into the other work that you've been doing, because you spend half your time here and then the other half over in Mexico.
That's right. Yeah.
And you're working on TV and film productions.
Yeah, I'm sort of transitioning across into composition for film and TV.
Yeah.
I've sort of
genre specific?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, it would be ideal to work on westerns and stuff like that, but I can do lots of different things, and I'm just looking to kind of get some different stuff happening rather than just making records.
Yeah, I mean, like there's such an intrinsic relationship between emotion and sound, right? And you can't really even have any. When I say you can't, but then you just said that Tarantino doesn't really have much of a soundtrack. But I wonder what it would be like if you actually had a soundtrack, because just that relationship, hearing audio cues that immediately just trigger some kind of emotional resonance in us before we even see anything happen on screen. Like it's prepping us, like this is how we want you to feel right now. Actually, just to tie that in, have you seen the clip of Friends when they took the laugh track out of it?
No.
Oh, dude, it's psychotic. It's one of those things like, they have that laugh track to tell us laugh. Yeah. Because if not, it's like, this is deranged.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, my point is that, when you have a soundtrack, whether it be just with like, I guess like a Foley type sounds or an actual soundtrack, that, that it's trying to elicit something in us. So there's that relationship between, I guess, like you playing in Counterfeits and already having an understanding of the relationship between sound, music, and film composition and how those tie in together. Now you're just translating that into the work that you're doing over in Mexico?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I guess after studying so much of this music, and also the music of James Bond and Secret Agent cinema and stuff like that. An English composer called John Barry, who did the 007 theme and, Goldfinger, Thunderball, From Russia with Love, like Her Majesty's Secret Service and all these like famous. John Barry created the sound of James Bond, basically. And I've gone, deep dived into that one as well. And I guess after doing so much of this music, I haven't actually done a film score, and it was like, I understand this so well now. I've been doing it for like 10 years, and I just really want to do like a film score now. Like I feel like that's something that I need to kind of cross off my list. So I'm sort of hoping to over in Mexico. I'm working at a recording studio that does mainly music for film, TV, and ads as well. And yeah, I've been doing a few cues here and there for those guys, and it's something that I want to get into a bit more. I feel like it's just something I need to do, and I really look forward to the day where I can compose for a Western movie or TV show, because I don't think there wouldn't be many people on earth that know as much about Western composition as what I've learned over the last 10 or 15 years.
Dude,
and
reach out to Naughty Dog and get on that Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, I've been doing that on Instagram with Woody Jackson, who's the composer for Red Dead.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've been messaging him for a couple of years from the Counterfeit account, and interacting with him. So when the time comes for Red Dead 3, then
that's my connection. That's how I see American Westerns, right? Like that seems to be, I guess, a depiction of something that was quite raw.
Yeah.
That's a little less, I guess, like it'll still be dialed up a little bit, right? With a, just a bit of spice thrown in there.
Yeah.
But I feel that that's probably closer to how things were authentically, rather than it just being Hollywoodized. And
yeah. I think he did a great job on that soundtrack, and
it was brilliant, man.
Yeah, it was I thought they did a really great job. I feel like there's elements of it, like the online version of the game and stuff, which obviously wasn't as much budget put into those parts of the game, which is a shame, because that's the kind of best bit about the whole thing. But overall, I thought they did a really great job, and it'd be a really exciting project to do as well.
Actually, I said it was Naughty. It's not Naughty Dog, isn't it? That's
Rockstar.
Rockstar.
Yeah. Rockstar Games.
Rockstar I think it's that after GTA. That'll be the next one they're working on, isn't it?
Yeah, that's coming out next year or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I reckon it'll be at least 3 or 4 years before they, or longer.
Probably longer.
I mean, it was a game that kind of, it's probably about 10 years old now, so.
Red Dead 2?
Yeah.
10 years, you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon so.
Okay.
It's getting there.
Yeah, I gave that a good run a couple of times.
Yeah, in the lockdown, I gave it a good run. We all bought PlayStations and kind of went online and drinking margaritas and playing Red Dead.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, like games is probably an avenue worth exploring as well. Movies are getting churned out by, dime a dozen these days.
Yeah, and it's an avenue that I have explored a lot. And like I said, over in Mexico at the studio that I work for, they sort of do, or work at, freelance for. There's lots of that sort of stuff, and there's just more opportunities for musicians and composers over in North America, because the population's bigger, for starters, like way bigger.
Yeah.
And there's, particularly in Mexico, there's just not as many musicians, because it's a risky profession and it's a third world country, and you're probably better off studying to be a lawyer or an accountant or something, where you can where it's a bit more stable.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, then it's a third world country.
I'd imagine that the creative scene there would be pretty rich.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of work, but there's not, like all my mates are musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone plays something, but nobody plays in my friendship circle over there. A few of them do from the studio, but from my other side, like, it's a really quite a rare thing. And to be very good at what you do as well is even more rare. So it's sort of, a person like myself who's been doing it my whole life, I've been playing music longer than my wife has been alive. And, like, you just don't get that in Mexico, very rarely at least. Which
it's a different work ethic, I guess, like that we just born into pretty privileged position where we can pursue creativity. We can do something arts and roll the dice and see how it goes. If it doesn't work, then we'll go get a job.
Yeah, that's it. Or I'm gonna get this job, which I don't really want to do, but it pays me and that allows me to do my creative, what I actually want to do. That's a bit of an Aussie way to do it, I think. Whereas in Mexico, you can do that in Mexico, but you can't take the same professional risks in a country like that compared to what you can take in a country like Australia.
I went down a bit of a rabbit hole looking at. There's a lot more creators out there, right? Especially in video form, whether it just be like all forms of content creators.
Yeah,
it's just skyrocketed. I guess like maybe the last 5 years, 10 years, but I think more so since COVID.
Sure.
A lot of people just took the initiative to create at least more visual and video content.
For sure.
And then part of that is, I guess like with more video content out there, there's also going to be a need for more audio content, whether it be having... Well, I guess like let's say, for example, something like this podcast, I'll have an opening track and a closing track, right?
Sure.
And I'll just get that off stock. It would be like a royalty-free.
Sure.
So I went down this rabbit hole looking at what happens now because there's low barriers to entry when it comes to creating video content, but it's not so easy for audio content, right? Like you can't just pick up any kind of recording device and go make music.
Sure.
You can, but you could be completely unskilled and still put up video content.
Sure.
You cannot be unskilled and put out music. You just can't.
It doesn't quite work like that, does it?
No.
But you can be good at AI and dictating what that's going to do. And, with the technology that's coming out now, it's like that for this stock sort of music, that's what's happening.
That's what I was going to ask you about, right? Because the part of going down that rabbit hole was seeing a lot of what is being happen with Google and Sony, that they've got a lot of this AI generated stuff. And I want to pick your brain on that because like when you're talking about doing a film score or even actually recording any kind of music, there's so many different layers. Even something like, what was it? It was the, not voice augmentation, but it's essentially just taking a known recording artist's voice and then imposing that on just like having their timbre and applying over another set of vocals.
Yep.
So there is that level of, I guess, music creation.
Yeah.
There is the other one where did you hear what Google, how they've got their Google Music language model?
No.
How there was, I think it was like they hired 10 different musicians to play back through thousands of hours worth of music and to tag it and to give it descriptions. And then they ran the music with those descriptions through this language model that they've created. And essentially what they're trying to do is allow people to type in whatever they want and then it'll spit out music according to the description that people have requested.
Do you mean by spit out music, do you mean it creates music or it locates music?
Creates. Yeah.
Oh, so original AI.
I guess like an interpretation of it. So it'll be unique in and of its own right.
Yeah.
But it would be almost like an amalgamation of others. Almost like if I was to ask you to create something inspired by this, this, and this, and this.
Sure.
You'll just put something out that is inspired by, which will loosely sound like those inspirations.
But it'll be an original composition that you can use without plagiarism and all
without plagiarism. Yes. Okay. So it's not plagiarizing. It is using those as inspirations, much like how we would use it. So it's not even sampling.
Stealing like an artist.
Stealing like an artist. Exactly. What that is exactly what it is. But that's also somewhat biased by the I guess the culturally. Okay, so like if I was to say play me something from this genre in this era, it is going to have certain biases, right? Because like a certain era, the music is still going to be quite varied depending on where you are located.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still not perfect, but what it has allowed is a lot of content creators, video content creators, if they needed audio to go with it, they can just type in what it is that they want and not have to pay any. And it's entirely free.
Yeah,
it's not.
Or subscription based.
Whatever it may be. Yeah, like what I guess essentially what it's doing is just cutting out the need for musicians.
Yeah.
Because it's just pilfering all their shit and recreating.
Yeah, I reckon it's, like you can't fight this stuff, like when it comes to technology. And yeah, it's pretty terrifying the way that the direction that things are heading in, but I feel like anyone who's at the top of their game is safe, but anyone who's new, like graduates or people who have just started in an industry, they're all fucked because they will get replaced by the machines, I reckon, and the AI stuff. But I don't think, while AI might be able to give a replication of something, you can't recreate the spontaneity of humans in a room playing music together.
That part,
you just can't.
That part is that's a bit different, and they're trying to recreate that spontaneity.
Yeah,
and it's not there.
They can't. Like a computer doesn't know what it feels like to love or hate or lose or win. Like it doesn't have that, and these kind of core emotions. Like it might be able to kind of, emulate it and interpret it, but it can't write like poetry from the heart. I mean, it can write a poem, by analyzing all these other poems, but it can't recreate like in the way that a human can do it. And while it can do a pretty damn good job at it, it can't pinpoint this key thing. And I feel like AI kind of does like it's a mirror of what we do, and it mirrors it super quickly, but it can't go further than that.
Yeah,
at the moment at least.
And
I don't think I can't see that happening, soon at least. Like it's hard to say. I mean,
not in our lifetime, but I think in terms of like production, I think it's there. I think that like if you were to make a movie and you're a low budget indie movie and you have this particular scene and you needed a score for that, you could pay someone to compose that. But if you can't pay someone to compose that, it could be a matter of just inputting a couple of keywords, some key phrases, and saying create a track that is this long, that fits this mood, and spit it out. Because one of the things that, like, when we listen to music is usually paired with another activity. So when that's done, music isn't necessarily at the forefront. It's there to complement what it is that we're already doing. So in terms of the film, if that score is there to complement what is being seen and not necessarily contradict it or contrast from it, then we'll just absorb it without even thinking.
Sure.
So if they are able to create music that complements that without us trying to dissect it, then it might just work, which then leads me to think that film compositions and scores, and like you said, unless you're at the top of your game, there's a lot of people that it's going to cut out. Yeah,
I reckon the vast majority. And it's going to be a lot harder to get into industries. Like even if it's not low budget, like Netflix shows and stuff like that, the music that you hear in a show or in a movie, they might pay top dollar for like 2 songs or something in an episode.
Yeah.
Familiar songs that you know. And the rest of it is production music, which they get for free. So some of that might be AI-driven music, or some of it might be alternate versions, or some of it might just be music that, I've got in my catalog from 20 years ago that's not doing anything. So I just put it up on whatever subscription site that film production companies use, and it's free. You know what I mean? You just go on there and type in your keywords and what you're looking for, and then it comes out, and it's like, sweet, that the music supervisor's like, that track fits. This is what we're looking for. This hits the brief.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah.
So most TV shows and movies, you see, is full of production. It's called production music, and I'm sure that AI has a place within the production music world. But yeah, it's quite funny how it's all changing. You know, like it used to be a composer that would do the whole thing and create the soundtrack. Now it's a combination of everything, and you know, everything's so expensive. So you've got to, you know, cut your costs where you can, and that's where it is. But what's happening is the production music is getting better and better, so it's unnoticeable. It doesn't feel like when you watch an Instagram or a YouTube ad and it comes on with some track, and you can tell that that's stock music. You know, some like house beat with some synthesizer stuff, or you know, it's, for me at least, it's really obvious when I hear an Instagram ad, and most of them are stock music. You can hear it, and it's, you know, it's a thing.
I guess that's where the line in the sand is being drawn, because same like you would be able to pick up stock music. For me, stock imagery is just equally as jarring.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
But now AI has kind of like removed the need for that, and you could be a lot more precise with what it is that you're trying to create visually and sonically as well. Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, it's not quite there, but it is kind of scary to think in the music profession, especially something that is so emotive and entirely emotionally driven, that because it's not like, for example, graphic design, which could be something that's more informative and
sure, okay,
so if something that's going to be informative and it's, I guess, like guided by a set of parameters and rules,
sure,
asterisk, that AI will know that, okay, we want to communicate this is the best way of achieving this.
Of course, yeah.
But when you're dealing with emotions and layers of emotion, especially with music, it'll be very hard for it to try to hit those particular notes. But if it is something that's kind of just there as a supporting act, then maybe
it's going to be low volume in the thing, which it usually is. Like, you know, my mate did a Super Bowl ad for Booking.com, and it was, you know, I won't say what the budget was, but it was massive. And then you see the ad, and you could barely even hear the music. And it's like, why? I don't understand why they would allocate that much budget for something that is barely audible. You could have just used some stock sort of track, and it would have, you know, been fine, to be honest.
Just as equally as unnoticeable.
Exactly. Like there was a couple of moments where the track sort of poked out within the ad, but it's a bit of a piss take, to be honest. Like the budgets that fly around for this sort of stuff, and the volumes that they get put into, like you can't even hear it, you know. And that's back to the Spaghetti West. That was a different thing, you know. Like the music's always loud and present, and you know, a lot to do with the lack of dialogue and all that sort of stuff. But it's nice to hear a movie, and same with Tarantino movies. You know, like the music's always like, you know it when it comes on, whereas you might see, you know, some kind of modern movie. I mean, the movie The Social Network, the Facebook movie, that Trent Reznor did the soundtrack from 9 Inch Nails, and he kind of, that soundtrack changed the way that it set a whole new trend of film composition. You know, like industrial kind of drones and more something you might hear on CSI or like Law and Order, like cue emotive drone, you know, and while it was super powerful and perfect for the Social Network film, it kind of sent this whole, for me personally at least, it sent this whole path for composers, well, not so much composers, but for directors. They want something like that, like the Social Network. And it was almost in a way, this is debatable and not something that I've even thought about, but that movie, the soundtrack of that movie was almost, in a lot of ways, the death of melody in movies for the next 10 years. Like, there was nothing kind of, I'm speaking very generally, but, for me, when I watch a movie or a TV show, a lot of the time they don't have that king melody that comes out like they did in those older movies, and it's more of a sub-drone and that style of thing, which, I wouldn't be surprised. That would be the type of thing that would be easy to recreate with AI, you know what I mean?
Go unnoticed.
And be probably really good, but when it comes to creating, a title track like Django or The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and the decisions that come along with composing a title track like that, whether it's the instrumentation,
that's
or the arrangement or whatever. Like, there's so many human decisions that need to come into play that, I just don't think a computer can do that yet.
Oh, that's a really good point. When you said that, like, it's not something that's really brought to the forefront anymore, where once upon a time, because earlier you were talking about, like, having a James Bond or even like Mission Impossible, right? Like, these notes, they stick with you. You hear a couple of notes and you're right there. You know it. And that's not anything that's necessarily done. Like, when you're bringing on Trent Reznor for a soundtrack, then you're trying to make a statement. Like, you want it to be known. Like, you want this to be, like a bit of grit to it, and a little bit of some definitely tension, and just to make you feel something.
And like I said, the soundtrack for the Social Network was awesome, and that's one style of composition, but it changed music in film, I reckon, and maybe after a while, not for the better. It sort of was the death of the melody a little bit, and I'm a melody guy, so, give me the goddamn melody,
And you are right about AI, because I'm thinking, like, if you were to look at the spaghetti western genre, both music, movies and music, you couldn't spit that out. Like, you couldn't just make up a subgenre and punch out a sound
it
for
would
it.
do. In fact, I'm interested to experiment with that and see what it can do, and dial in the parameters and get it and refine it and see. It'd be an interesting experiment, and one that I hope to do, to see if I can get it to compose something that's good. I mean, we use AI in the studio for songwriting, for lyrics. A lot of the time it's quite helpful for that. We've got the first line and the third line, and the title of the song is this, and it's about this, but I'm missing the second and the fourth line, but it needs to rhyme with this, and it needs to feel like that. And then I'm like, give me 20 options. And then it'll spit out 18 horrible options and one okay option, and then another option that I'm like, that's really good. I'm like, well, and then I'll write, well done. Got to compliment the AI, otherwise you'll be the first to go when the machine revolution
Use your
comes.
thank yous and pleases. I was chatting with a writer. She writes kids' books and is now starting to not explore, but has looked into how AI would write in her style. And she praised it. She's like, it actually does a pretty good job. So I think in terms of wordsmithing,
it's great for that.
It's great.
Yeah.
I think if you're a writer, an English writer, you're in trouble. I think it's really good at conveying emotion in words.
Yeah.
It's terrible at graphic design. Absolutely heinous.
Mhm.
Like, I would have thought that's the first one to go because it is more objective based, but it cannot do design.
It's a useful tool though, nonetheless. Like it's with graphics and it's we've used it for parts of our like sections of our album covers, back covers and stuff, creating
like a layout arrangement.
not so much the layout, but like, for instance, like the spaghetti western covers are like picture trailers a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So it might be one element of a picture trailer. For instance, we did got a band photo painted, right, by a mate of ours, and then so it's the 12-piece posse kind of standing there, and then our album artist created a burning saloon behind the band, basically, and that was used through AI, and it looks bloody great, to be honest.
Oh, no. Yeah. Art it can do. When I say design, I strictly mean, like, say with your albums, it would just be the composition, the layout of it.
Oh, right.
Not the individual elements. It can create the individual elements really well.
Yeah.
But in terms of being able to lay something out, it's really hacky.
No good. Yeah, right.
Not there yet. And that's the part that I thought it'd be able to do really well.
Yeah, right.
Being more objective based. But it's, I guess it just has not a smaller pool, but a less defined or a less well-defined pool of well-executed examples.
Sure.
Whereas with illustration, it is able to discern what is good and what's trash.
Yeah.
But in terms of design layout, it can't do.
Yeah.
Logo design, don't even bother.
Yeah.
Don't even bother. And I thought that would be the first to go.
Same with me.
Yeah, but no, it's really hacky with that. And not surprisingly, music is another thing. One thing that I had a look at, which was really cool, is I think it was the Google the language model. It's really good at translating words into music. So the next iteration of that is that if you could take an image and translate that into words, and then use those words to translate into music, you essentially have music representative of a painting. So the example that I saw was the Van Gogh's Starry Night.
Sure.
And listening to the musical representation as created by Google of what that painting sounds like. And I thought it was great. Like, it resonated with me. I heard it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can actually see how that could work. So it bridges the gap between all it's able to create like almost like a multi-sensory experience of a piece of art, right? So like an expression of art could be, my bias is visual. I see things more visually, and being a visual artist as well. But I know that with visual art, it's there. I create to emote something, right? To feel something, and to convey that to whoever's looking at it.
Sure.
So it's just this. It's an essence of a feeling that can also be felt and experienced through music.
Sure.
So having a visual form and the auditory form, having it represented sonically, and having that one experience. That to me is like kind of exactly what we should be all striving towards anyway in terms of art. Like, and when earlier, just right from the start, we're talking about having these collaborations. That's essentially what it is. It's like having a synergy, having some kind of multi-sensory type experience to create one experience.
Sure.
And it's really good at doing that. And I think
it totally is. And it's like back onto the, like with the AI thing, it's so good at doing all these things, but then to bring it back to the human side, it might be able to recreate this, it might be able to create the sound to a Vincent van Gogh painting, or it might be able to create 2 or 3 different ideas or compositions for it. But the choice of which one is perfect for that visual that's a choice that a computer can't make, I reckon, and that's where it needs a human to go. Option 2 is fits the best. You know what I mean? Because it can't. It's something that needs a human touch. You know, and
It needs subjectivity.
in my opinion, at least, I think that those choices, AI lacks when it comes to the decision making part of it at the end, at the final thing. It can't. It doesn't know which. I mean, it might think it knows, but it doesn't know as well as a human, I guess is my point. And
No, but I don't think we know either. But we were able to make a decision, right or wrong.
that's it. Yeah. Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we don't know, but we've got an instinct and a feeling that we might be rolling the dice on it a bit, but we feel like this is the best fit for this application or whatever.
Yeah, that could be it. I don't think, like with AI, it's designed to be optimized to be right all the time, right? To be objectively correct.
Yeah.
But in something, I don't think you can necessarily apply objectivity to something that's subjective.
You can't, yeah.
And maybe that's
exactly the point, yeah. I mean, you can get, it might be, sometimes it might be right, sometimes it might be wrong, but I mean, that's a human thing as well, sometimes the wrong choice is made and, or, if you're working with a client, you might be like, direction A is the one that you should use, and they're like, nah, but we like direction B.
Yeah.
And this is the world of creativity. It's a subjective world, and while I might like this painting, you might like that painting, and that's
Actually,
kind of cool, like that's
dude,
what it is.
That takes me, so back, how long ago was Deja Groove?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
All right. So when we did that collaboration at Revs,
Yeah.
so that's a good example
Sure.
of applying that human subjectivity.
Yeah.
You guys were playing on stage. I was sort of in the middle somewhere doing a live painting
Yep.
that was inspired by the music that was happening at
Sure.
the time.
Yep.
Now, I'm thinking like, so, all right, as that painting was going on, there's not just me listening to the music, but there was the vibe of the crowd,
Yep.
right? There was also all the baggage that I had taken with me along the way,
Yep.
right? And what I mean by that is that back then when I was painting, there was a lot of angst and animosity,
Sure.
but that didn't come through the painting like that. It was actually like a real jubilant sort of.
Yeah.
Your music was it's positive and uplifting
Sure.
music, right? So that came through, but I wonder how much of the baggage I was carrying would be inherently tainting that experience, so to speak.
Yeah. That's
Right?
an interesting thought. Yeah.
And then now, if we were to go and recreate that, it's still the same me, but 20 years later,
Yeah.
you and the band 20 years later,
Yeah.
how much different everything would be if we tried to replicate it. I think it would just be completely different.
It would be. Absolutely, no doubt, I reckon. Like it's
So that's the layers of that subjectivity and like
Yeah.
experience. A lot of experiences that we don't even consider, right? Like it's just layered in that.
yeah. And I reckon, 50% of the crowd might love it and 50% of the crowd might hate it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things, and that's the beauty of art. And I think I would say the number one thing as a creator that I strive for is to make music that 49% of people hate and 51% of people love, and when you've got that split in the middle, that's when it starts to kind of, fans start to, debate stuff.
Yeah.
And then you got fans that are bagging you, and then, or not, people that are bagging you, and then fans that are, defending you and this sort of stuff. And as soon as you try and create art that 100% of people love, you've lost before you've even started, because that is something that's impossible. But yeah, I think when it comes down to it, that is the pinnacle of creation for me, is creating something that splits the crowd down the middle. It's the ultimate goal for creation, and painting's a big thing for that, I reckon, where it's, we might look at the same painting and I might love it and you might hate it. depending on where you're from or how you're being brought up and what you're into and what you're not into. It's, and that goes across into stuff like fashion and movies and graphic design and music and, travel and whatever else it might be, content, you know what I mean? Like there's some things that you love that I'll hate, and that's the beauty of being an artist.
I wonder how much of that is choice as well. I was thinking about this last night, right? Like there are certain things that I don't like it, but then I'm like, why? Why don't I like it? Why don't I like it? Yeah. Like what is it about it that's rubbed me the wrong way?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I could not like it for the same reason why someone else would like it.
Yeah.
So then is my not liking it a choice that I made? Because if I feel a certain way about it, I could just as easily be like, and that's why I like it.
Mm.
And,
sure.
I've had that internal debate. So there's a lot of things that I intentionally now go out of my way to I guess, make me feel uncomfortable and uneasy.
Yeah.
And be like, I don't mind that.
Yeah.
And just for the sake of trying something new, even. So yeah, last night it was that discussion, like the internal dialogue. I'm like, why don't you like it? And then could you like it for that same reason? And so that's kind of like the ethos I'm trying to go with now. Is like just put yourself in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
And try to like that in and of itself.
Yeah, and see, I'd do the same thing and try and come up with like something like. With music, I try not to put music into a good and a bad pile anymore.
Music is definitely one, right?
Something that I can take out of, I work at a recording studio as well and produce records and all that sort of stuff, and in a shared building of music producers and sound engineers. And, walking through the corridor sometimes and hearing a band that's making a record or something, for instance, like there was some band doing like an industrial metal thing, screamo metal kind of industrial thing. Not my bag at all. Pretty much couldn't be further from it. But they were so into it, and like I wasn't working on the record, but I was just hearing it, and I just find it fascinating the shit that people get into and like get obsessed with, and it's the same with me getting into spaghetti western stuff, like people are just like, what the fuck is that? And like, why, how did you get into that? And it's like, yeah. And I just see these guys making this industrial metal record. And to be fair, they were really good at what they did. Great at what they did. And they were tight, and the tones were cool, and it was hard hitting. But for me, it just sounds terrible, to be honest. But but I can still listen to it and go, well, the drummer's, obviously really bloody good.
That's sort of the thing with music, is that it might not be to your liking, and there are certain sounds that just resonate with you more. And I think I used to listen to, especially throughout high school, a lot of hip hop, and I think that it's just the cadence and how obvious the beats are. And I don't want to say simple, but to me, it sounded simple.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it resonated with me more.
Yep.
Whereas something like metal music, I could now have a better understanding of it. And it's so complex.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of why it didn't resonate with me as much, because of it seems like it's a sort of genre that is a musician's type music.
Sure. Yeah,
and
muso music,
yep. Right? Like I get that there's a particular sound to it that can be quite grating, but I think that if you peel back the layers, it's a lot more involved.
Same with jazz.
Yeah, okay.
On the other end of the spectrum, they're both kind of complicated genres, and
which are like anti-genres as well.
As well, yeah. And you sort of the more you understand it, the genre, the more you can appreciate about it. But still, knowledge doesn't change your tastes. If it can sometimes, mildly, but you know what you like. And just because I understand the technical side of heavy metal and industrial metal doesn't mean that I like it. You know what I mean? And that's a funny thing in itself. But then I guess there's a grey area between liking something and appreciating it, or appreciating the skill that goes into it.
And then like your job that's there to create sounds and soundtracks and audio resonance that's meant to complement a visual piece.
Sure.
I suppose like having a larger library or foundry that you can tap into and be like, I don't necessarily like the genre, but I think that it is the most appropriate sound to be applied in this.
That's it, yeah. And that's one of the hard things to kind of achieve, I reckon, is finding the right sound for the right visual and getting it to lock and not letting your tastes get in too far into the way of what is actually right for that thing. You know what I mean? It's same with graphics for you. It's like, I like doing this style of graphics and I might try and pitch that for this project, but I know in my heart that it probably isn't the best decision for this project, but it's because I love it. That's my go-to kind of thing. And, being able to kind of peel back those personal kind of tastes can be quite a challenging thing. But that being said, that's why people hire you in the first place, because they like a thing that you did or that you're doing or whatever, and they want that thing or a version of that thing. So.
Well, I guess like over the years, and much like with what you've done, is that, and like we said before, how you carry all your experiences across with you.
Yeah.
That at some point, like especially at our age, you've kind of, when you start off in whatever creative field you're doing, you try a bit of everything and you kind of like, throwing shit on the wall and seeing what sticks kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you start culling away what you don't like and start investing in the areas that you do like. Yeah. So I've like heard this expression. It's like, when you're starting off, you're like a painter where you're adding brushstroke after brushstroke. And then later in your career, you're more of a sculptor where you're now removing parts that don't fit.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it.
So that's kind of where I see it. So like it or not, we have created a mold that we fit in because we've done away with the shit that we don't like anymore, that just doesn't work with everything else. Yeah. So we have almost like, for me, it would be in a visual aesthetic. For you, it would be an audio aesthetic. And, as much as we try to be somewhat objective with what we do, I don't think we can entirely be that. And I think that's probably what separates us from like a machine, right?
I agree,
it's just that subjectivity.
And it's another thing that separates us from the machine is that it takes, like the ultimate goal with creating, other than splitting the audience down the middle, is to sound like yourself. And it takes a long time to sound like yourself, and that's through experience and trying this and then trying that. And you can sound like yourself several times throughout a lifetime in different ways because your tastes change and the way that you create changes and all of that. But for me, that's kind of one of the most beautiful things is to be able to create something that people know that's Harley Stewart, you know what I mean? Or whether it's a painting or a movie or something, like Tarantino's got his own style, and you could watch a Tarantino movie and not know it's him, and they would know, like that's the thing. And I like that, what you just said about how you're adding brush strokes, but then as you get older, you're more like a sculptor, cutting stuff away and realizing that, it should be, if you get these core elements right, you don't need all the fluff around it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was too much. You know what I mean? Now it's just about, the chords and the melody rather than all these other things that kind of surround that. I think that's a really good point. And something I've noticed that, my work has become simpler as I've got older.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It does become a lot simpler. You have less time for bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, whether you acknowledge it or not, you kind of just, one way or another, you just kind of cast away
Yeah.
the nonsense.
And you start to understand that the core elements of any composition, whether it be musical or visual, the core elements are the most important parts. And if you get those core elements right, you don't need all this other stuff around it. But when you're younger, you don't understand that as much yet. So by putting all these extra layers on stuff, I kind of look at it like you're putting Band-Aids on stuff, there's something rotten at the core that you haven't deciphered or you're oblivious to, which has set off a chain reaction of putting Band-Aids on stuff, whether it's multiple overdubs, like layers of like, guitars or whatever it is. So you start to kind of pile on these overdubs to cover up a mistake that you're not aware of.
I mean, that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? So when you're younger, you're just taking on a lot of knowledge, and then you're hearing from all these people. So you try this, and you don't know how to filter out all the noise. So you're trying everything, and now you have this one piece which is just like it's a mishmash of different opinions and not your own.
Yeah.
But you need to have the years and the innings to then convert that knowledge to wisdom and be like, actually, this doesn't work because I like this more, so we'll get rid of this.
Yeah, exactly. Start swinging the axe.
Yeah, and chipping away.
Which is something that happens, as you get older with experience, you start to kind of realize which opinions are important or which ideas are important and those that aren't.
So, funnily enough, with all of that, you've somehow landed into spaghetti western like much later in life. So we've just said all that and then almost contradicted that by saying that we've gone into like this genre which is like a full-on spectacle. Like, how big is your band? It's like 11. It's like it's an ensemble.
That's it. It is quite contradictory.
So
the music that I've started making, it is quite sophisticated in parts of it, but it's quite rock and roll in other parts of it. And the simplicity of it is also the complexity of it. And those two things overlap, ironically, in really bizarre ways. Some of the music is quite sophisticated and on many levels. But even buried in that sophistication, the core elements are simple. The melody is simple, something that you can whistle back. So it's quite a funny thing, and I see what you mean about the contradiction of it all. But I guess the way that it's put together and presented is simple.
Maybe that's the tension that we just reside in, right? Like, there's a lot of things that, and this comes from that experience, that we're able to do complex things simply. Yeah, that we know we're able to look at something or observe something and be like, from an outside point of view, it seems like a lot. But then when you start breaking it down and you have that capacity to be articulate with it and be like, actually, if you distill this is, real basic, and we just have this other real basic thing, and we're just bringing in a couple of basic things
That's
together.
it, yeah. And I find, like, just because there's 12 people in the band doesn't mean that they're playing together all the time, if ever. I mean, sometimes they are, but the number of musicians in the lineup represents the sounds of the characters within those movies. For instance, like the acoustic guitar with the trumpet is the Mexican mariachi bandito sort of thing. The whistle is the kind of lonesome cowboy riding across the plains. the harmonica is the European soldier in the Civil War with the Hohner harmonica in his pocket. So each instrument is a character within the movie, and when you see a movie, you don't usually see all those characters on screen simultaneously, and The same with this genre of music is, while it is complex and sophisticated, it's still very simple at its core, because it's rare that all of those instruments will be playing together at the same time. They're much the same as if you're doing a painting. You've got all these colours in your palette, but if you use them all, you're going to end up with brown. You know what I mean? It's the same with music and arranging and composing. You got all these colours, these instruments, but you don't have to use them all at the same time. Maybe if you're young and inexperienced, then maybe that's a mistake you might make.
The Brown album.
Yeah, the Brown album, exactly. And with age and experience and wisdom, you start to learn how to use the colours in your palette to make it digestible for someone that doesn't know anything about music. And that's the key thing. And the key thing for it is always melody. You know, the melody is the king. Of any composition. With the harmony playing the support role, the chords that are behind it, you know.
So you're here in town for how much longer?
I'm going back to Mexico on Thursday, and then in 3 days, and then back in 3 months. I do a 3 months. We do like a 3-month gig schedule, and and that's kind of the next thing.
Are you gigging in locally? So in 3 months' time, what's the gig schedule look like?
3 months' time, we've got the Counterfeit are playing a show at Sovereign Hill at the Victorian Theatre in Sovereign Hill, the old Wild West gold rush town in Victoria, which we've done before, and it's super fun. And I'm also doing we've got a spin-off project called Johnny Fuego on the Heat that plays the music of James Bond and Secret Agent Cinema. So we're doing a show for that, which is pretty much the same band. Yeah. We swap out our ponchos and wide brims for our tuxedos and martinis. And we're doing a show at the Nightcat, which should be quite cool. Yeah, band in the middle of the venue, and it should be pretty cool. So that's the next thing. And between now and then, I'm just working on the originals album for the Counterfeit, which is, you know, where it's at. You know, we're in phase 3 of the plan, which was do the first 2 records that reimagine the genre, cover records essentially, and learn how to do it, put the lineup together, get it fixed so everything's in line, and then do so much of it that it becomes us, and then do the originals album. So we're probably about 3/4 of the way through that, which is the debut Spaghetti Western Originals album, which is the soundtrack to a movie that will never be made, which is somewhat of an invitation to filmmakers to make the goddamn movie.
Dude, there you go.
But yeah, it's pretty exciting. The record's sounding great. It's called Violent Night on the Prairie, and I'm really, really happy with what we're doing.
When can we expect that?
By the end of the year.
Ooh.
Yeah. There's one track of it that's already released on Spotify and, you know, all of that, called Hurricane Lila, which is one of the main protagonists in the movie that will never be made. A female protagonist, which is something that hasn't been done in the genre, to the extent that we're doing it anyway. So yeah, it's pretty exciting to get that, you know, nearly packed up, and a bit of a relief as well to learn that we can actually do it, because there's a lot of pressure to kind of, after doing all these great, you know, reimaginings of existing spaghetti western soundtracks, there was that sort of weight on the shoulders as like, can we actually do this in an original kind of context? And
how interesting, man.
Yeah, and we can. It sounds great. And
narrative in audio form like that depicted in a soundtrack of a movie that
will never be made. Yeah.
Well, you never know, but not made yet.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like,
wow.
And it's just one of those things as well that, you know, moving into film and TV composition, to get a show reel together, you know, like I've got bits and pieces of stuff, but I'm sick of waiting for opportunities. So I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to make my own soundtrack, and that's going to be my show reel, basically, and or at the front of my show reel. And that's what we're doing. So that was a part of the whole project. And, you've got to, as soon as you're relying on other people, things just go too slowly, and you just need to create the opportunities yourself. And while this whole project was something that I just had to do personally, not to do with career or anything like that, it was just something that I had to do as an artist. Now it's sort of starting to open up other doors, and
it's funny how that works.
Yeah, it's and my tastes it's changed my tastes, and like it's influenced me in ways that I would never have imagined, in music and in life and in creativity and just what I want to do and stuff. So it's a real treat that keeps on giving, and but it's all to do with the original's music, the original music. That's where it's at for me, and that's where it started, and that's where it'll end. The other stuff is just a part of it, and the learning curve of the whole thing. So yeah, I'll let you know when the record is complete, and
for sure, dude. I'm really looking forward to hearing this.
Yeah, thanks,
mate. Harley, thanks so much for jumping on, dude. I know you got to shoot off now.
It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah. No, man, absolutely. It's great to reconnect, man. It's been many, many years.
Absolutely, mate. I really
just to see what's been happening, and to now sink my teeth into a genre that I was largely unfamiliar with.
Yeah. And I'm sure that when you sink your teeth into it, you'll kind of, some bells will go off in your head, and you're like, I know this. I've heard this before. And you'll start packaging it up into what will now be the spaghetti western file in your brain, the back of your brain.
That's exactly what's happened. Yeah. I'll have to replace the icon with from Tarantino to you guys, though.
Sounds good. That'd be quite the compliment.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.